your organization has achieved a significant dent in vaccine mandates.
We didn't do the science. We didn't do the clinical trials. We didn't do the post safety. But one thing we know it's rare.
All right, we have these legislators waiting here so patiently. Very, very honored to be joined today by Representative Steve Toth in the House.
Let's go.
Representative Cody Vasut, also in the House. Representative Nate Schatzline. And Representative Tom Oliverson over here. This is some fan favorites in the House. Yeah. And of course, you guys already know Michelle. But she's also here, so let's give her one more round of applause. Yeah. So just wanted to get you guys together and have a conversation about medical freedom and liberty here in the state of Texas, where we've come, where we still have room to go, and just some of the thoughts that you guys have on that. So I want to start out by asking, was there a moment, and I'll direct it to one of you, but you guys feel free to jump in. Was there a moment for you that you realized Texas was not like this, medical liberty wonderland that everyone would expect that the state of Texas would be? Because when everyone from outside of the state of Texas I talk to, they just assume like, oh my gosh, it's this super, freedom of passion and liberty. And it's like, oh, we've got problems here that we need to figure out. So I'll start with you, Representative Toth. Was there like a moment that you discovered that? Was it before you entered office or after? Walk me through that process.
So it was evident really quickly when you get here to understand that there is not liberty, and we do not have liberty in Texas. But what really drove it home for me during COVID was when hundreds of United Airline pilots came to me and said, we're being forced to get the vaccine. We're healthy. We don't need it. We don't want it. We have religious exemptions and medical exemptions. We shouldn't have to take it. And this is the essence of crony capitalism. But the most compelling story that I heard, a guy called me up and he said, Steve, I got over COVID a month ago. It was severe. I'm fine, but I have no immune system. My doctor said, your immune system is completely depleted, yet Continental Airlines, or I should say United Airlines, said to me, you will get the clot shot or you're going to lose your job. You're going to get it done in 30 days. And his doctor's like, do not do this for at least 3 or 4 more months. But at the risk of his life, Continental or United Airlines, the FDA, and no one cared about this guy. It's pure and simple tyranny. And it is tyrannical that you care more about your policy than this guy's life and the medical science that says, do not do this.
Representative Vasut, do you have anything?
COVID brought, I think, this issue to light in a way that it had never been seen before, right? Where historically, we had maybe some hospitals mandating certain vaccines, on occasion, but never, who had ever had a private employer of some, whether it's like a petrochemical company or an office complex, or, order their staff to get a medical treatment of any kind. And that was only COVID. But I think that what this issue has raised to light is that it's unjust to have to pick between a jab and a job, and that should be the case for any type of jab, not just COVID-19, right? And so I think that's really what brought it to attention was COVID. And I ran for office during COVID, and so that was kind of a front row seat to the changing environment. But really, whenever the private employer started trying to mandate vaccines, I think that's really when it's like, oh, this is not only an issue, this is a huge, huge issue that we need to address swiftly.
Yeah, very well said. I think it's important to say, and I think it's important just to affirm that the work is not done, and we still have COVID vaccine mandates in the state of Texas right now. And so the reason that I want to acknowledge that is we've got work to do even now. A few of the key moments that I knew that we had a problem was when all of a sudden our incredible soldiers had to choose between serving our nation and getting an experimental vaccine and being removed from the military. Well, how many of you know, I want some free thinkers in our military that are willing to be bold and courageous. And so those men and women should be celebrated. They should not be demonized for simply saying, I don't want to take an experimental vaccine. My health matters to me so I can defend this country. The second thing was very personal, where I had my child's pediatrician who came to me and said, Nate, this is the issue. He said, not only is everybody that's around me in practice being incentivized by these vaccine companies with massive amounts of money, but there's also different things where we are literally unable at this time to serve families who refuse to vaccinate their children. And that was the point where I said, not in Texas. And he responded with, all of us are terrified to speak out. We need you to speak for us, because their livelihood was on the line. And so for me, I think that there's been so many physicians that should be celebrated today for speaking out and being bold, but we need more to keep speaking so that we can truly eliminate vaccine mandates in the state of Texas.
Amen. Representative Oliverson, was it COVID for you as well?
No, actually it wasn't. The thing that really perked my antennas up was when former Governor Perry tried to mandate every young woman in our state to receive a series of vaccinations against a sexually transmitted disease. And that had never been done in the history of anywhere in the world. And here we were right here in Texas. And I think that was about the time that TFVC was born. And so, you know, I ran for the legislature in 2016, and there are people in this room that came and worked on my campaign and helped me to get there. And Rebecca, I remember very clearly. And, you know, we fought medical tyranny on day one. I was on the Public Health Committee in 2017, and one of my former colleagues had a bill to make it opt or mandatory vaccinations, or was it opt-out or whatever? I can't remember. M-Track was going to be mandatory for everybody. And we fought that off successfully and killed that. So, yeah, I mean, I hear what my colleagues are saying too. As a doctor, doctors, believe it or not, only know what they're taught, right? And so I think if you want to lay blame, I think what we really have to do, and maybe I should digress and just say, how many people in this room are really, really excited about RFK Jr. being our nation's son? I'll tell you what, I am Maha all the way, and the reason is because the things that I really needed to learn in medical school, I wasn't taught. Do you know I got 1 hour of nutrition in 4 years of medical school? And you know, we treat everything with a pill or a drug or a shot or whatever. And don't get me wrong, there's miracle cures out there for sure. There have been some really amazing things that we've been able to do. But I'm not sure that your doctors are really taught much about prevention, wellness. Everything's a pill or a shot or whatnot. And so, we really need to, I think, look at medical education. So that's kind of what got the ball rolling for me.
Michelle, I know if I were to ask you, what is your ideal public health policy landscape if you were going to write the policy for the state of Texas? I have a feeling I know what your policy would be. I want to ask them, but I want to hear from you first.
It's none of your damn business. It's basically
exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Very simple.
Yeah.
I took it from you.
Yeah, that was the name of my bill last session. It's the none of your damn business bill.
Hey.
Meaning you can't inquire about my vaccine status.
Yeah.
It's none of your business.
Right. Right. But I mean, as you guys point out, we still do. That's wild in the state of Texas. We still have COVID vaccines that are mandatory. Quite honestly, I know I'm in good company, and I'll say this, and you guys won't take offense, but that's embarrassing.
It is.
It's very embarrassing for the state of Texas. So describe your ideal public health policy landscape in this state as far as not just the COVID vaccine, but all vaccines are concerned. I'll start with you first, Representative Schatzline.
Yeah. Well, I love your sentiment. Couldn't agree more. So let's just start from there. It's nobody's business what your vaccination status is. I'm a freedom guy, and so if I believe that we should have absolute freedom. Do I believe that someone should be able to get the polio vaccine? Absolutely. But no one's going to tell me what I'm going to give to my child. And so parents' rights have to be put right there at the top. It's individual rights, it's parents' rights, and then it's making sure none of our state institutions, public education, government programs get to have a say in what you can or cannot put into your body. It's really big. I think going back to what Tom was saying about RFK, one of the most beautiful things is I feel like we're getting back to the basics of, hey, maybe we shouldn't pump children full of processed foods right now. Yeah. I say that as I have my energy drink right over there. But, do as I say, not as I do.
You're an adult, not a child.
Yeah. And I made that choice, Sarah.
And you will live to regret it.
But at the end of the day, why are we poisoning children with our food right now? And so I think some of these companies going into the food, they need to be investigated as well. This all goes back to freedom. We as parents should have the final say in what we give our child. We should be informed on these things, and no government institution should have any say whatsoever in that process.
Yeah. Do you agree, Representative Vasut?
Oh, me?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, what Nate said, the chief end of government is to preserve individual liberty, period. Like, that's the main reason why government is here, is to preserve individual rights. And foundational is bodily autonomy. Bodily autonomy. That's why I am pro-life, because I believe in the bodily autonomy of the baby, right? So the bodily autonomy for us as adults and children is to be able to make decisions about what kind of medical treatment we do or do not get, and to not be discriminated against for what we choose to do or not do, to have full and complete information about what we choose or choose not to get, right? And that we can live freely without government treating us differently for doing so. So, no vaccine mandates, informed consent, total informed consent, I think is critical in order for government to preserve individual liberty.
Steve, are we going to get another "it's none of your damn business" bill?
Yes, you are. But on top of that, though, in addition to medical freedom, they need to break up the MMR. The mumps, measles, rubella shot needs to be broken up. Parents need to be able to decide. You cannot continue to say, well, we just weren't diagnosing all these autism cases. No, we have more autism today. Period. End of story. Quit lying about it. Number one. Number two, we've got to make it really, really, really clear that parents cannot be compelled to take the shot, and they've got to have not only that, but they've got to have educational freedom too in the midst of it. You can't compel me and say my kid can't go to your. If these vaccines work, you can't say that my kid cannot go to your school simply because they have not taken one of 70 different shots. My gosh, when I was a kid, we got dragged to what do you call them? Chickenpox parties, right? Yeah. Couldn't think of it. I got the chicken pox. It was great. It lasted like 3 days. I got to stay home from school, kids. It's wonderful. Right? I'm not putting my kid's life in danger by all these. No one knows how all these shots, how all these vaccines, quote unquote vaccines, interact. But then on top of it, we've got to start having an honest VAERS system. Our VAERS system is a total joke. If doctors don't have to record and dialogue, record the fact that someone got sick from this stuff, our healthcare system means nothing. But right now, it's this cloak of secrecy that we're doing for one reason and one reason only, and that's to protect big pharma.
Yeah.
Can I add one thing? One of the things that, as Steve was talking, it just hit me. I filed a bill this session to make sure that medical students do not have to have forced vaccine on them as well. And the reason that that's so important is not just to protect their individual liberty, which is absolutely the precipice of what we must do, but it's also to not send them into an indoctrination camp that leads them to say, well, if I had to get it, maybe all children have to get it. It goes back to what Tom said of you don't know what you don't know. And if we do not promote individual liberty from the get-go in the education system, then we're going to create doctors that act as tyrants inside of the physician's room. And so we have to attack this head on, no exceptions, medical freedom for all.
Can I just add one thing that goes along with that? You've got to break the connection between big pharma and our medical schools right now. So you've heard the expression, if you publish or perish. Where's that money coming from? I used to work for Johnson & Johnson. We're involved. We sold devices, orthodontic devices. And the orthodontic departments longed for the money that came from J&J to help their department out financially. Well, you're introducing money into the equation, into students' lives, and into the lives of the professors that are teaching and instructing them. And government's got to step in and break this unholy alliance.
Yeah, Tom, you were talking about the lack of education when people are going to school to become a doctor. I mean, but you're looking at, as Steve pointed out, 70, what is it, Michelle, 72, 74? 81? Okay, I need to figure out what the new ones are. I didn't know we were in the 80s now.
COVID,
But so you're looking at all of these, at these shots, and you know that these have not been studied in conjunction with one another. The schedule itself has not been studied at all. And you look at it and you're like, how in the world could this happen?
Yeah. No, I think you've all hit on something really important, and that is that I think, our scientific system of inquiry in medicine and health has become so corrupted by dollars. How many of you remember a drug called Vioxx? Mm-hmm. Do you know that Merck actually falsified their data with regards to complications and heart attacks and deaths and basically just deleted it so that they could get the drug approved by the FDA? Thank goodness a very smart lawyer from Houston, Texas caught them. And it cost them a lot of money, but I don't know how many of you remember this, but there were articles that really good medical scholarly journals like the New England Journal of Medicine, which is supposed to be the pinnacle of pinnacles, there were articles about drugs and things, treatments. Some were like, hydroxychloroquine doesn't work. Some of them were like, this is a wonder drug and everybody should be on it. They had to be pulled out of the article after the fact because it was found out that the results were basically manufactured. Mm-hmm. They actually screwed up the study intentionally because they started out with a conclusion and they designed a study to give them the answer that they wanted. And unfortunately, a lot of medical science right now, I think, falls victim to that. I will say one other thing about this, just to kind of scare you a little bit. There was an article that was published in the Journal of Psychology about 10 years ago, and it basically said that 50% of the studies published in the psychology literature could not be repeated. The results could not be repeated when the study was repeated. And essentially what that means is that what you are purporting to be the results and the facts was never true to begin with. That means half of the articles published in psychology are actually not science and not truthful and not factual at all. So we really, really, really got to get the money out of the science, because I am really worried. And COVID really brought it to the top, right? We really are in danger of losing the scientific method altogether. Science doesn't care about your bottom line. Science doesn't care about your feelings. Science is the relentless pursuit of the truth, and science isn't afraid to be challenged by opposition, because repeated, study is how you move from hypothesis to theory. So of course you should be able to challenge it. Whatever your doctor says, oh, this study says that. Well, that study's in conflict. Well, that's not very conclusive then, is it? Right? So, we really, really, that's one of the reasons I'm excited about RFK Jr. is that I think he clearly sees that we literally have a personality crisis unfolding in medical education and science, generally speaking, and that big pharma, big food, all these other companies have basically corrupted all of these scientific processes. And so now it's all about whatever generates dollars, not necessarily about what's good for people. And that scares me as a doctor.
There is obviously the problem, you talk about RFK Jr., and I think one of the reasons that at a federal level you have all of these senators, like Elizabeth Warren squawking about how he's going to take away he's going to make them liable again. Oh my goodness, he's going to take away their immunity. I can't believe it. And so you look at the conflict of interest with these senators and you look at how much money they're getting from Big Pharma. And I just wonder, I'm looking at that at a federal level, and I just wonder if any of you can speak to whether or not, that's a problem at the state level as well.
So it's different in one respect, in one really important respect, and I want everybody in this room to understand this. In the legislature in Texas, you cannot raise a penny of funds while legislation is being considered by the legislature. That is totally the opposite in Congress. In Congress, they literally talk about what are called toll booths, which is where the chair of a powerful committee has a bill before consideration, and they literally bring in the groups that are for and the groups that are against, and they write checks, and then the other side writes checks, and then they go back and they say, well, they gave more. Well, here's some more money, Mr. Chairman. Would you like to take your family to Maui for the weekend? And they literally will set up a toll booth, and whichever side raises more money for that member or for that member's party or for that member's super PAC or whatever determines what happens to that legislation. We do not, now I'm not saying that, there's not influence here, but I think it's critically important to understand that one of the mega failings of our federal government is that lobbying with dollars literally happens the day of a vote on an important matter. We are prohibited from raising funds. We can't even raise funds, 30 days before or after we come into the legislature. We go into what's called a blackout period. And I've always thought that that's exactly how it should be in Congress. They should not be allowed to raise money while they have bills in committee that they're considering from people who are asking those bills to be considered. That is a horrible practice.
The only problem with, Tom, with what you're saying is that while we can't raise funds, the Associated Republicans of Texas is pulling in millions and millions of dollars. They are raising money 24/7, 365, even while we're in session. And what are they going to do? They're going to give it to people who run against us. So the guy that lined up to run against me, I think I raised a couple $100,000. He spent like $600,000 or $700,000. I could not go on the internet and see one of his ads against me, talking about what a racist I am, white supremacist I am, He-Man woman hater. I mean, you name it. That was me.
He got your name ID up.
Yeah, they did. They actually did. And instead of him only losing, or instead of getting 35% like the year before, he only got 34%. But the point, though, guys, is that it's not equitable what's going on right now. Big Pharma is coming after us. They're going to spend millions of dollars against us. And it's millions of dollars that we're not spending to defeat Democrats. It's so lame.
And I'll add, I think, can we just give it up for this organization for being so vocal and building such a grassroots militia? Here's what's beautiful. We have a room full of activists in this room that you took your day to come down here and advocate. Let me just tell you something. It's more meaningful than you know that you're here. We have two issues in the Texas legislature, and I'm excluding my colleagues up here from this, but we have, and it's not just because you're here. I actually like all of you.
We like you too.
But
You wouldn't believe what he says about you guys behind your back. It's so bad.
We have two major issues, and this is on both sides of the aisle. We have a corruption problem where people are taking money in order to win a vote. But secondarily, we have a low T problem or a low testosterone problem.
What?
Here's the deal. I don't know if it was because they were vaccinated, but Tom, you got to write a prescription. Here's the thing. We have a lack of courage in the Texas legislature that says, come what may, challenge me in a primary. I'm going to fight for families, not the special interest groups or the lobby. And so the reality is, the more you show up, the more you come to days like this put on by these incredible organizations, the more you show up, the more pressure and the more ability you give for every legislator in the legislature to say, there's too much pressure. I can't resist these guys. And so I just want to say thank you for being here.
Yep. Amen.
I want to kind of dovetail off of that. What would you say? Because obviously they're taking time out of their day to be here, and we appreciate all of you guys being here. I know you probably all have a million things to do, but is there is coming here on site the most effective in your opinion? Is it an email? Is it blowing you guys up on social media, which I've kind of been known to do?
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry.
We appreciate your efforts.
What is it that if they don't have time, they're very busy, and they want to know, okay, I'm going to prioritize the one thing that makes the most difference, what would you say that would be? And I want to ask all of you that.
Stepping into a rep's office is worth 100 phone calls.
Yep.
It's worth 10 emails. It's worth 40 letters. It means so much. Government is won in the state of Texas by those that show up, and you guys are showing up. So thank you. This is the single most important thing. And I'm going to put in a little deal here for tonight. Yeah, 6 o'clock tonight, we're going to feed you, and then we have a worship service afterwards if you want to join us.
Great.
Is that like just showing up here at the Capitol or showing up at your local rep's office?
Here's key, but at home is key too.
You find your local rep is going to be out in the community, or I hope. Okay, you know what? Let's just asterisk that. Hope. We hope that your representative is out in the community and find out where they're at. Go to the events with them. Get to know them. Build that relationship that you then have an open dialogue with them. And then two, come talk to them in person during the interim at their district office. Set up a meeting. Come up and talk to them. Or when we're during session, come up here and have that conversation. Steve's right. That is worth 100 emails, 1,000 Facebook posts, etc. That is how you really engage with your state rep, is that personal connection. You know, it's just like I don't know. I'm going to say something probably silly, but like how you meet your spouse, right? You gotta meet them in person at some point in time, right? Surely. And so, but building that relationship with them in person goes further than anything.
And I'll add, it helps your emails get better responses if they have met you face to face.
That's true.
It helps your calls be more meaningful. If you're telling a staff member, look, I've talked to him in person about this. He said this. Why is he or she doing this? So.
Yep.
And I'm going to just share what worked for us, this organization, before we were an organization, is I just happened to go into a legislator's office. He had an essential oil diffuser, and I was like, these are my people. And I would talk to the front desk, the staffer at the front desk who might be here, and said, I'm with Texans for Vaccine Choice, and I want to talk to the representative about HB 2006. And I heard from the back office, tell her to come in here. I go back there, and he was like, listen, if you can get your moms here every time we need them here, I will do whatever you need me to do. And a couple months down the line, we had a bill that was being debated on the floor. It was like an HPV related bill. And we could see them like swarming, like, oh my God, they're here. We're like, what do we do? And they're trying to change the bill on the floor to make it more digestible for us. And so, I mean, when they say show up, it really, really does work. There is no substitute for that, because we know that the other side has nothing but time and money. And so if you're not here, they are. And they will be giving their side of the story. And unless you're here to give them the opposing view, you're not going to be heard.
And we're in Austin, and the other side is, of course, who populates Austin. Right. So
yeah.
If you guys don't show up, like every hearing is like,
and I've got
weed,
yeah,
the whole 9 yards down the thing. So we need you here.
And find a rep that will adopt you if your rep is terrible like mine. So
that's exactly what I was going to say. We'll adopt you if your rep is terrible. Yeah. We will. Look, I mean, I'm very sad that I'm not on the Public Health Committee this session. But y'all, we have won some great fights together in that committee because you all show up and you testify. A parent that is concerned showing up with their kids, who is prepared, who has a 3-minute testimony, who has examples and personal experience, strength, and hope, that wins the day. And TFVC has led the way on that, in my opinion, in this whole sphere of medical freedom for the entirety of this decade. You all are so good at it. Never, ever stop. And the last thing I'm going to say is you have a lot of friends in this building. And to Steve's point, there are people that don't like you and don't like what you stand for, and they want to get rid of your friends. So show up and help out in the interim when somebody has a tough primary. There's nothing as good as having families knocking on doors for you, talking to their neighbors, or maybe not their neighbors, maybe from across Texas, and just saying, hey, I want to tell you about this great rep that represents you and what they did for me and my family. That moves needles, that wins hearts, and that's kind of stuff is never forgotten.
So, Michelle, can you talk a little bit about some of the legislation that TFVC maybe wants to get done this session? It's been an interesting start to the session, guys. And so I want you to tell everyone kind of what, in an ideal world, what you guys would like to get passed. And then I want to hear the feedback from them on how possible that is based on the landscape of the current legislature.
So our primary goal this session is very simple. We want to make it so you can print your exemptions at home because I experienced the cumbersome process of having to request an exemption from the Department of State Health Services, wait for them to send it back with this, 4-page diatribe about what a bad decision you're making. And then you have to go get it notarized, and then you turn it into the school nurse, and you have to do that every 2 years. We did a public information request from the Department of State Health Services. It turns out that's costing taxpayers $630,000 a year for you to exercise your rights. So we want to make it so you can print them at home and just turn them in on your own timeline. You don't have to risk not having your kid go into public school. Representative Schatzline has a wonderful bill that would prevent discrimination in patient care across the board, because it's still in Texas legal to deny a transplant to a patient who doesn't get a COVID vaccine or a flu vaccine. And then I know Representative Oliverson has a bill about what the Department of State Health Services is allowed to maintain as far as the records of people who request exemptions. Vasut, you talked about informed consent. There's a Senate bill you can co-sponsor. It'd be great, or sponsor on the House side. And then
no pressure. We're just all counting on you.
I've got a whole list. I've got a whole list of stuff that you guys can sign on to on the House side.
Yep.
But
who has your bill on the printing thing?
There are 3 bills on that. So we've got
So
Swanson.
literally right now, I can't go onto a website and just click and print a form.
Nope.
You have to request it.
And they send
the
it
state.
on.
And is that in code? It says that we have to request it that way, or is it
Yes.
a rule?
It is in code.
Really? That's stupid.
It is stupid. I agree. It's very stupid.
So I think I don't want to speak for Michelle. I think obviously the end goal would be to eliminate us having to even have an exemption, because here in the state of Texas, I shouldn't have to exempt myself
Yes.
from my children to attend public school that I already pay for in my taxes.
Yeah. The
So-
end goal is for these guys to put me out of work.
Yeah.
So I don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah. So then the bills that already have been filed, and you guys let us know if there are any other in the works that you guys know of, but the bills that already have been filed, how likely is it that you guys think that they will?
I'll let you take that.
Tom does have a better chance of passing
Well,
the bill.
so I will say that there's a gentleman that I'm very excited has joined us in the legislature. He was here a little while ago, but I think he walked out. Representative Mike Alcott from Parker County. Is he there? Where is he?
Where is he?
Oh, he left. I was sitting over here. I was looking for him. But he is on the Public Health Committee, and that is really great. So we do have a champion for the cause still on the committee. Look, I don't think any of this is disastrously difficult to pass. I just think, we're going to have to get out and work it. I mean, but y'all know how to do that. You've been doing that for years. You are literally the best grassroots group when it comes to providing testimony for bills that you like. And you just need to do what you do. Now, my bill's very, very simple, and it's just basically about protecting your confidentiality, that state health services can't, make it so that people can figure out who it is in their kid's classroom that isn't vaccinated, right? So you don't have to worry about your kid being attacked. I mean, I think we can do it, y'all. It's just a matter of, are we going to roll up our sleeves and do it? We've got enough time left in the session that if we prioritize this, we go and we talk to the chairman of the Public Health Committee, we go and we talk to Senator Colcourse, Chairwoman Colcourse. She's a reasonable person. She's a conservative. She'll be with us on these issues. Let's just go get it done. I'll help you. We'll roll up our sleeves and we'll get it done together.
Let's just go down the line, Nate.
Yeah, you bet.
So there are people who pass a lot of bills, And then there are people who kill a lot of bills. And we do some of all, but I would be the bill killer type. And so we'll be working our bills, but at the same time, I'll be standing on the forefront, ready to kill anything that takes away your freedom. And I think both are incredibly important. We've got champions up here that have carried such incredible legislation to protect your freedoms. And I think on a personal note, these guys know the process even better than me. This is my second term being in. I don't know of a Republican that would vote against the bills you just talked about. It's about putting it in the right person's hands so we can get it across the finish line. It's about you guys pushing, and it's really about us being willing to stand up and fight against anything that tries to take away that freedom.
I think this session, just like any other, you have every opportunity to pass good public policy. I really do. And I think that you get out there, you work these bills, and that's got to be that one you were talking, the first one that you were trying to tell me who had it. Valerie has it?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, come on. That's easy.
It is.
That is low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Low-hanging fruit. So things like that, absolutely. Just work the bill, and as things develop and issues come up, you're going to reach out to us and get help. Move things through the Senate, move things through the House. When there's a disagreement, we communicate, work it out, get a conference committee. I really am optimistic about this session. I think this session, just like it's no different than any other that I've been a part of. I think you have every opportunity to pass good conservative public policy this session if you put in the work. That's what I'd say. I'm an optimistic person. I'm probably one of the most optimistic people here. But I've passed, I think, 27 bills off the House floor last session, and you just got to work them. You just got to work them.
Nate and I are the Bonnie and Clyde of bill killing. He's Bonnie, I'm Clyde. He looks great in a dress.
He looks great in a dress.
You guys, honestly, coming here, you may feel like, man, we got a late start. We didn't get the speaker that we wanted. Committee assignments came out late, latest in 45 years. And people are saying there's not a whole lot to be hopeful for. You know what? God's on his throne. Mm-hmm. He's in control. The Democrats are not. We are his children, and he's making a way for us. And God has never given me more hope. This is my 5th session. And in spite of everything that's going on, I should look at it and say, this is the worst. God's never given me more hope. Guys, I'm encouraged. We should be encouraged. Don't listen to the naysayers. Don't get negative. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. And this is going to be a good session.
Absolutely.
You also cannot convince me, Tom, you mentioned a couple times RFK Jr. being at the federal level. You cannot convince me that is anything other than a God thing, that all of that happened, right? So to Steve's point, God very much is in control of this. So obviously you guys referenced COVID, which you should have, because that was, as we discussed earlier here at the rally, kind of a tipping point for a lot of people. And I just wonder, Anthony Fauci kind of got off scot-free at the federal level. Joe Biden pardoned him in the 11th hour, which is kind of crazy. If you didn't do anything wrong, why would you need a pardon? And so I just wanted to get your thoughts on whether or not the state of Texas should pursue criminal charges, civil litigation against Anthony Fauci, and maybe go that direction instead, just to see what comes up.
Absolutely. Go for it. Let's do it. Ken Paxton, we love you. Go for it.
I mean, I think anybody, no matter who you are, insert name, if anyone has violated the penal code, the Texas Penal Code, or violated the DTPA, which I think would be the civil cause of action, Deceptive Trade Practices Act, absolutely. The Attorney General's office is empowered and has a duty to investigate those vigorously. And wherever those may lead, for whomever they may lead to, we should always enforce the law. Good Lord. Absolutely.
Not only should we investigate the face of this horrific corruption that we've seen in the vaccine industry, but we need to actually investigate these vaccine companies. They need to be investigated so that they can be criminally charged, civilly charged, you name it, whatever we can get, because the reality is there are so many people, so many children that have been harmed by vaccines that someone must be held accountable. The problem is right now, there is an absolute protection over them And we need to remove that protection from the federal level, as well as do everything we can at the state level to be able to go after people who harm kids.
That's right.
You, Steve Toth, you filed a concurrent resolution last session about repealing that act, correct? At the federal level. Let's do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tom, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what I've heard. I just think, the other thing I'm hoping to get out of RFK Jr. is I hope he just guts the FDA, because this whole business of the revolving door between working for pharma and then working for the FDA, I mean, that's just corruption. I mean, the FDA is so freaking corrupt. Their only success, really, if you look at it, was thalidomide, and that was in the 1960s. And everything since then has just been really a lot of corruption. A lot of people getting rich. I think, yes, absolutely, Anthony Fauci. I'm sorry, but if you have to be pardoned before you were even accused of a crime, how freaking dirty are you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's just
whoa,
ceremonial, Tom.
dang. But I mean, who needs the FDA? Brian Harrison and I spent some time last session in the interim with TPPF looking at the possibility of just saying to heck with the FDA and let's just have the TDA and we'll just tell the feds to go pound sand and we'll do our own drug administration and we'll actually run it honestly and ethically. I mean, that could be a start, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Just a quick aside on the FDA, it was really interesting to me. They came out in Joe Biden's final days and said that they were banning red dye number 3, which I'm like, hey, I'll take it, okay? I don't trust your intentions, but I'll take it. But I started looking into, because obviously this is something that has been banned for 30 years in other countries and then also banned in certain products here, but not in the food. And I was reading that it was actually the maraschino cherry companies, lobbyists, who said, remove them from the beauty products, remove red dye number 3 from the beauty products, but not from the foods. Keep it in the foods.
Wow.
We know it's a carcinogen. But you have to keep it in the foods because it's too important for our cherries have to be neon red, or I guess they don't taste as good or something. And so that's the level of corruption that you're looking at, that for over 30 years, the FDA allowed a known carcinogen in your food that you and your children were consuming because the cherry companies had their feelings hurt. That's what we're dealing with here. So I love the idea of a TDA instead. So, I want to go back to COVID one more time. I don't want to rehash COVID because I know it was, it aged us all like 84 years. But I think there are a lot of Texans, probably some in this room, who are a little bit concerned with the idea that, well, what's going to be the next thing? What's going to be the next pandemic? What's going to be the next thing that, even though we were told by certain leaders that we were not going to have mask mandates, all of a sudden we had them. We were told that we were not going to have to follow all of these rules, shut our businesses down. But in certain cases, we did. And I think that there are probably a lot of people who are looking for some reassurance that in the event that they try something, that Texas is not going to fall for it again. Because it did feel like Florida was leading the way a little bit, and Texas was just following Florida's lead. And I think that there are a lot of Texans who'd like to be reassured that we have legislators who are going to fight like hell to make sure that we don't succumb to anything like that again.
So Donald Trump is not our savior, but he is a tourniquet.
Yeah.
And he has stopped the bleeding. Guys, we've got a 4-year window. We as Texans have a 4-year window because we don't know what we're going to get in 4 years. We've got a 4-year window. We should operate as Trump is with a high level of urgency. Right now, we cannot spike the ball. We cannot say game over, it's done. Now the real work begins. We got him in there. Now the real work begins. We've got 4 years to clean our act up.
I agree. I'll add something. I think this is the season, just to add to what Steve is saying, to not just be on the defense of, hey, we don't take our liberty, but to take back liberty. So, thank you.
And so what that looks like, I have a bill right now that we're working on, and I don't know if I'll end up being the one who carries it or someone else, but just simply gives parents the discretion to say, hey, we can go about experimental treatments for cancer in our children that do not apply to what standard medicine and practice should say, because how many know we're learning to question everything? And so going on the offense means fighting for freedoms that haven't yet been taken away and fighting for new ground in the medical industry for us to actually put on notice and say, hey, as a parent, I'm taking back my rights. I know better than any doctor what's best for my child, and I get to exercise that freedom every day.
Yep. President Reagan said that freedom is only one generation away from extinction. And while we have had COVID being an eye-opening experience, if you fall asleep at the wheel and you don't continue to remain vigilant, then 15, 30, 45 years, whatever, it'll be a problem again. So the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. So you have to be constantly, like Nate said, going above and beyond to pass proactive legislation that guarantees our freedoms. I love proposing constitutional amendments, probably file more than anybody. I'm like the Senator Birdwell of the House. And I know it's an uphill fight, but parental rights amendment, that's a very proactive defense, right? To protect liberty. And so there's plenty of bills that we can pursue that we're being proactively vigilant to protect our rights and expand the protection of our rights going forward, rather than just sitting back, not telling our kids, not passing on what we've learned and waiting for the next pandemic in 50 years. Or hopefully never again, but you never know.
Tom, did you want to weigh in?
Sure, I'll just say quickly, I do think we missed an opportunity last session, but it's not too late. We need a comprehensive bill banning vaccine mandates in the workplace. It is going to happen again. And our bill protects us from COVID, but what about the next thing? And I just think, let's before everyone forgets what the lessons were, let's just freaking get it done and make sure that never happens again. No more airline pilots losing their jobs, no more people being kicked out of the military, no more newscasters who had a prior history of a severe life-threatening allergic reaction being fired, even with a doctor's note saying you can't take this vaccine, it might kill you. Oh, sorry, the out-of-state company says you lose your job. That's just got to stop.
Yes. Hey, the one thing about this, though, guys, is we have to use a laser beam and not a shotgun when it comes to telling businesses what to do and what not to do. We do not want Texas to be in the business of telling people how to run their businesses. That will kill the Texas miracle. So instead, what you do is you say, it's none of your business. You can't inquire about my vaccine status. You can't inquire about what medications, what drugs I'm on. It's none of your business. We've got to stay out of the business of their businesses.
That was like the genius behind Representative Vasut's bill last session, HB 609.
All I did was just incentivize them to do the right thing.
Right. Giving private businesses the protections they needed to be able to say no.
Yeah.
All right, one last question, and it's just an agree or a disagree. Agree or disagree, your vaccine status should be completely and totally irrelevant to your participation in society.
Agree.
Agree.
The jury is still out.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, Michelle, do you have any final words for these legislators before we let them get back to their busy day?
No, I appreciate, 10 years ago, it was hard for us to find one person who would be outspoken. And now, especially with this incoming class of freshmen, we have an army. And so this is the time to get things done. We have more energy behind us than we ever have. We've got everything from attorneys to doctors to youth pastors in skinny jeans to
Wow.
I always do.
Skinny jeans.
These are the loosest slides.
These are the loosest.
We have everyone, and
So I live with him.
Yeah.
It takes a shoehorn to get him into those.
Do you have to pick him up?
Paint him on. Paint him on.
Thank you for your service.
just to be able to have this conversation with multiple legislators, to have a dozen or so come down here during our indoor rally to just be recognized and acknowledged. That means a lot for us as an organization. It means a lot for me because it makes my job a lot easier. But we've only gotten to this point because we have been very diligent in getting the message out and being here and knocking doors and bringing people in for citizen engagement days and rallies and to testify and to stand, be in the gallery. So I love Representative Little's scripture quote that he uses all the time, which is, do not grow weary of doing good. And it may have taken 10 years to get to this point, and it may take 10 more years to absolutely ban all vaccine mandates and exemptions and everything, but we will get there.
Yeah. I want to thank all of you for your time. There are some bad guys in the building, but you guys are the good guys, and we appreciate you so much. Can you guys give one more round of applause
Thank you guys
for
very
these
much.
wonderful, wonderful freedom fighters?
Thank you for listening to the Shot Callers podcast. Please, if you found value in this content, rate us and share the podcast with a friend. It's a great way to get the message out and to empower everyone to make informed decisions. Until next time, never forget, we are the Shot Callers.